88.1 Love Music, Love Life. This is Freshly Pressed. We're looking at the news stories making the headlines across the country. To be a part of the conversation, which would absolutely love you to be, the WhatsApp number is 0809 440 981. You can also tweet at Smooth981. And we're streaming live as well, so you can catch the live stream up on our YouTube. Hello, YouTube. Just search for Smooth981 and you can catch the live stream and post a comment on there as well. Our analyst this morning, Mr. C, and Gbubemi will be joining us shortly. Good morning, Mr. C.
Good morning, Zibby. Good morning, Lagos.
All right, so let's kick things off, and we're starting with the punch. Now, the president yesterday in Abuja presided over a valedictory meeting of the Federal Executive Council, and he also did thank ministers for their loyalty since 2015. There was a short thank you address to all the members of the State House staff in Abuja.
Okay, so thank you, Zibby. So, as we're all aware, the 8 year tenure of the current president comes to an end on Sunday, the 28th of May, 2023. Because on the 29th of May, it is expected that a new president will be sworn in. Now, in line with tradition, he's had his last valedictory session with the Federal Executive Council. And as we're all aware, they meet every week on Wednesday. So this was the last meeting before he hands over. And it was an opportunity for them to take stock of what they've done over the past 8 years. And he thanked them for their service. And he did express his position that even where there were differences, these differences were aimed at moving the nation forward, and that he reasonably believes that he and his cabinet have put in their very best in the 8 years, and literally they hope posterity will judge him very well. And then the ministers took turns in thanking him and expressing the experiences over the past 8 years. So really and truly, it's really straightforward, and he's directed them to return and make sure that their handover notes are complete and that there's no last minute rush or no last minute activity before the handover. So it's not correct, according to the Minister for Information and Culture, it is not correct that he's all the ministers, the cabinet has been dissolved. The cabinet is still intact and will remain intact until, I believe, Sunday the 28th. So it's really a straightforward story, and he's expressed his gladness and his joy in being able to return to his hometown and to engage himself once again in the activity that brings joy to his soul and his heart, which is cattle rearing. And we wish Mr. President the very best in retirement, and he's encouraged his ministers who might still join the new administration to continue to support them, and for those who will not be in the next administration to continue to support the incoming administration from the outside.
Do presidents or former presidents ever really retire?
Well, so they retire from active duty, but some of them play critical roles in the background. They continue to offer advice if welcome and solicited by the present administration. And then they also serve as statesmen. They set up think tanks, and they continue to contribute to society. So they provide memoirs of their activities whilst in office. So you notice that in some of the Western countries, once the leaders leave, they write a series of books, they get book deals, then they go on a speaking tour where they share their experiences of what they went through in office, and then they proffer advice and solutions on how to deal with present problems. But they try as much as possible not to get too involved in partisan politics, because at that point they're expected to have risen above partisan politics and literally enter and assume the role of elder statesmen, father figures to the nation at large. So we expect that Mr. President, the current Mr. President, will join the likes of former presidents Obasanjo and even Goodluck Jonathan, who are now widely revered as statesmen on the West African sub-region, the African continent, along with former head of state General Abdul Salam Abubakar. So we hope he can join this league of gentlemen and offer his wealth of experience and knowledge to move the nation forward.
Awesome. Well, let us know what your thoughts are. 0809 4440981. That is the WhatsApp number. You can also tweet at smooth981. The hashtag is freshlypressed981. And we're also streaming live on our YouTube channel, Smooth981 FM Lagos. The president has asked the Senate to approve a request to pay the judgment debt in the sum of 566. Wait, is this in dollars?
Yes.
Okay, it's in dollars. $556.8 million, 98.5 million pounds, and 226 billion naira in judgment sums.
Okay, so thank you, Zibby. So the president has placed another request before the Senate, and this time it's in respect of judgment debts. Now, what are judgment debts? Judgment debts are sums awarded against a party by a court after it's decided a dispute between that party and another party, or even different parties. Now, the government, its agencies, its ministries, and its departments have been sued in a number of cases. At the last count, about 648 of those cases. Now, judgment sums were awarded against the government, and these sums are very interesting. We're looking at $566.7 million. That is over $500 million. Then we're looking at a judgment sum of 98.5 million pounds sterling, then 226 billion naira. Now, the question is this: from what cases did these sums arise? What sort of representation did we put up in these cases? Because in some other countries, judgment debts have been established to be a way to loot money from the treasury. So someone files a fictitious claim or a very weak claim against the government, it's poorly defended or not even defended at all, then the, the judgment debt then becomes enforceable against the government, and with allies and collaborators inside the government quickly pays and they share the money. Now, I'm not saying that has happened in Nigeria, but Nigerians would want to know, how did we get here? Because I am aware that for judgment debts, there's always pre-interest judgment, pre-judgment interest, and post-judgment interest. So these cases, could they have been settled without going to court? Now, for the cases that arise out of negligence, a complete failure of doing of duty abdication, have the responsible officers been disciplined? Have they been prosecuted because they have caused severe financial loss to the state? Now, these sums become actionable, and in a period where we're really looking for money everywhere to solve our existential problems, and case in point, we had to take a loan or apply for a loan to provide palliative relief in the event the subsidy regime is cancelled, and that was 800 million. Now we have to pay $566 million as judgment debt, and the proposal is they will be issued in the form of promissory notes that will be payable over a period of time. But before we pay all of this, how did we accrue this debt? How did we get here? If it's a failure of honoring contractual obligations, why did we not honor those obligations? We need to carry a deep investigation into these matters, because now it's 566. What's to stop it from growing, say, in the next 2 years? How do we prevent a reoccurrence of claims like this? So there has to be a deep investigation. Clearly, this present administration cannot carry it out. So the incoming administration has to be with searchlight on this area and take steps to ensure that the nation does not lose scarce financial resources to claims that could have been resisted properly or even avoided totally. So that's my 2 cents on the matter.
All right. The WhatsApp number again is 0809 4440981, and you can tweet at smooth981. Let's move on to Daily Trust. Now, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Leo Irabo, has disclosed that Nigeria has spent $8 billion to restore peace in Liberia. And this was in his keynote remark to mark the 75th anniversary of the United Nations peacekeeping operations.
Okay, so thank you, Zibby. So the Chief of Defense Staff, whilst marking the 75th year celebration of the United Nations peacekeeping operations, indicated that the government, Nigeria, had spent $8 billion to restore peace in Liberia. Now, that is a very bold and audacious claim. Now, the question is, do we have material to back up that claim?
Mm.
So, can we justify spending $8 billion on restoring peace in Liberia? And if that was the cost of restoring peace in Liberia, how much did we spend restoring peace in Sierra Leone? So, there are many, many questions, and it is customary for some of our government officials, some of our public officials to bandy figures around, and we don't get the details of what's underpinning those figures. Now, when we think of this 8 billion, this should have been appropriated in various budgets over the corresponding period. Now, my question is this: will we find this 8 billion if we go through the budgets over the corresponding period? Now, it's also instructive that there was no time period stated for the for this period where $8 billion was spent. $8 billion is not 8 billion naira. And it begs the question, what exactly did you spend it on? Because the things that will take the bulk of any purchase of any expense, major expense, will be recurrent expenditure, allowances and salaries, and then spares, ammunition spares, equipment. I'm not sure that $8 billion is correct, and the CDS might want to do well and recheck his figures because it seems that 8 billion sounds a bit inflated. Because I'm sure that if they're pressed for details and those details are provided, we may not get up to 8 billion. But hey, he says it's 8 billion, we run with it.
All right. 010809 4440981. That is the WhatsApp number. And you can also tweet at Smooth981. You're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. The show continues. Stay with us. Hi, Gbubemi. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Good
Hi, good
morning.
morning. Okay, so I don't know what's going on, but I couldn't see you in the
Sorry,
waiting
can
Stay
room.
tuned to Smooth 98.1 on
Your
your
waiting room is dodgy.
Ugh,
yeah, I
man.
was in waiting room. I don't know what happened.
It's dodgy, it's a dodgy waiting room.
Have you tried to use it like on
The
Zoom?
other day, you had the other guy. Your
Oh,
education is.
yesterday,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
How long did the advert?
Just about 45 seconds.
Okay,
Do you want to do something?
I wanted to switch YouTube there and put Zoom here, but I'll leave it that way.
Okay, that's fine.
As a need to hustle. I love the relaxation.
Okay, Bubemi, so we'll start with you once we return.
It feels like it's a different city. But all these things make
Okay.
it my Lagos. And that's why I love this city.
Music is life, and life is music. Here on Smooth 98.1. I go by the name saying, don't touch that dial.
You're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. Our analysts this morning, Mr. C and Buwimi. The WhatsApp number is 0809 4440981. You can also tweet at Smooth981. Live stream is still ongoing. Just search for us, Smooth981 on YouTube. Now, the central bank yesterday raised its benchmark lending rate to 18.5%, and that's a slight increase, 0.5 from 18, and this is in a sort of push to contain the nation's inflation rates. Bubemi? Buwemi, we're having trouble hearing you properly. Can you hear us? Okay, a bit of a signal challenge there. But let's go on to the next story. And this one is coming from Vanguard. Now, organized labor under the aegis of Pengerson has urged the president to assent to the Energy Commission of Nigeria Amendment Bill before handing over to the incoming administration on the 29th of May.
Okay, so thank you, Zibby. So we have an energy commission for Nigeria, and it would appear that the Energy Commission hasn't achieved as much as it should have due to several setbacks, including infighting among stakeholders, inadequate funding, and a lack of synchronization with the relevant stakeholders. Now, organized labor has urged Mr. President to sign the amended Energy Commission bill before he leaves office. Now, while that is a good request, the question has to be asked, why did we wait until now to get him to sign? Now, according to them, the bill was passed to the office of the president in November last year. So since December up to April, yes, I know that we were in the run up to elections, but the president wasn't contesting. So how did they miss or drop the ball, and they're now urging him to do it? Now, the reason why there's a bit of urgency or there's a bit of haste is if Mr. President doesn't sign it now, when the next National Assembly comes in, you have to restart the process all over again. And they're trying to beat that. So what they need to do is they need to reach out through probably the chief of staff or influential people and encourage or urge Mr. President to sign. It's not by public request. There is a process, there is a due channel to get these things done. And if they follow that due course or that proper channel, we should see the Energy Commission Amendment Bill signed before Mr. President leaves office.
All right, Buwemi, coming back to you, we had a bit of a technical challenge, but let's go back to the story from Premium Times with the CBN increasing its interest rates. All right. Thank you for that, Bubemi. Let's go on to WhatsApp. And Abbas says the government needs to start doing proper auditing of some of its own activities. Some of those judgment debts were likely incurred due to poor presentation of cases and representation of government in courts. Some of them are avoidable. The government needs to start assembling lawyers that will win cases and ensure that contracts and agreements are not left to loopholes that people can take advantage of. And Ajayi says the judgment debt the president is seeking to pay is the controversial one that the government is being requested to pay despite being a court matter. The EFCC must investigate the matter to avoid the country being swindled. And another message from Shegun. Shegun says the reality is truth is withering in this country as a whole. We can only keep asking with little hope of getting the required answers. What else can we say in our helplessness? God help us. Okay, let's move on to the next story. And this one comes from Business Day. Nigeria's manufacturing sector growth has slowed to the lowest in 3 years on account of a cash shortage that in some way crippled the economy during the period.
So this is pretty obvious. Now we're beginning to see the impacts that Naira redesign has had on the economy. I recall was it sometime last month we heard about the cuts to the egg market and the businesses in that sector lost a lot of money. Personally, I know a friend who had to flash out crates of eggs a couple of weeks so that eventually they had to destroy a lot of things. So you can see the impacts across and then the manufacturing sector also confirms what has happened. So what we see in that story as well, that there was an increase after the approval of the 200 and the short of the 200 naira, and then also after the short of the approval of the 500 and 1,000 naira. What I would also like to see is, potentially, we need to be able to gauge the impacts of the naira redesign policy across all the sectors of the economy. Granted, as things are possible like to achieve completely what we're supposed to achieve, but we suffer more from positive damage we enjoy, or when the benefits far greater than the outcomes because of the losses.
Mm. The WhatsApp number is 0809 4440981. And you can also catch the live stream up on YouTube. But let's move on to the next story. Nigerian farmers need quality seeds to boost their food production. And this is from Punch.
Yeah, seed production. Obviously, this is something that I think we discussed something along this line a few weeks ago. When we were talking about standards in terms of the kind of seeds that need to be available to ensure that we produce good enough for local production and also good enough for exports. So there should be a greater level of when we look at research into the production of seed. So I know there's this National Seed Production Institute, if I'm not quite sure. But there also needs to be a greater level of synergy between those institutes and the farmers. Quite all right. There's a lot of intervention from the Ministry of Agriculture with these research institutes and the end use farmers as well. But we also need to see a greater level of what's that word now of synergy across board to be sure that the impacts of all of these things are felt not just by the farmers but also us as well, because when we have what's that word when we have quality seeds, then we tend to have higher producing products across ground.
All right, thank you for that, Bubemi. Let's go on to WhatsApp. Godwin says the Naira redesign policy is likened to a good tool in the hands of a not so good workman. All right. Pastor Dapo says judgment debt scan seems to be real and vivid as revealed in Mrs. Okondre Weala's book. Government officials are said to purposely sign all sorts of vague and obtrusive contracts with cronies and collaborators that include clauses in which it's almost impossible for the government to comply, and then it defaults. All right. Abbas says Naira redesign was poorly implemented and it couldn't have yielded the desired results. We don't even know if the new notes still exist except for the ones that had been produced initially. Let's move on to Daily Trust. The federal government has launched a cooperative scheme for ex-Niger Delta militants, and 1.5 billion naira has been deposited into the bank accounts of this scheme that was launched.
Okay, so thank you, Zibby. So as we all recall, the amnesty program started under the late President Yaradua, and basically it was an arrangement to ensure that they left the life of crime in the creeks, and they were given training, they were given education to improve their lots in life. Now, at a point, we started paying stipends to them on a monthly basis, and I would say they've grown accustomed to receiving those stipends and have grown, some of them have grown a bit lazy. Some have prospered with the trading and the help they got initially. So the presidential amnesty program has come up with a new scheme. It's a cooperative scheme where members can take out money as loans to fund or capitalize whatever business activity they're interested in, and with that they can grow themselves and to get wing them off the stipends they get on a monthly basis, because there is a school of thought, a growing concern that the incoming administration might stop totally the stipends that they pay on financial grounds. So if this cooperative scheme is in there and they know that they can take money out, they can contribute money to take it out, fund their businesses and return it, that the idea is supposed to become self-sustaining. And initially the government intends to support it with 500 million monthly, and I do hope that the militants will grab this opportunity with both hands and make the best of it.
All right, let's see what messages we have coming through. 0809 444 981. And you can also tweet at smooth981. Just going to pull up the live stream on YouTube and see the messages that we have coming through. But let's go on to WhatsApp and let's see what WhatsApp has to say. Abbas says, rewarding agitators will make people feel it's a good idea to hold the government by the jugular. We need to review this side of us. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so the two things. If you have state actors that have the ability, the capacity, and the will to enforce the law and bring to order non-state actors who breach the law, then there'll be no point to reward them. Now, that reward is actually, in a sense, you could look at it from the perspective that it is actually the cost of managing the peace. So, because you lack the ability to keep them in check, and you lack the time and the resources to engage them in the attempt to bring them to heel, giving them some money keeps everywhere calm. Because let's face it, the Nigerian security forces are stretched thing all over the country. We're still talking about equipping them, and equipping them doesn't come cheap. It doesn't come free. We have to buy these spares in foreign currencies. So in the interim, in the short term, we might still have to find a way to manage them. But long term, I tend to agree with Abbas that long term, we shouldn't be rewarding bad behavior. But in the short term, you will have to find a way to manage the bad behavior. And if managing the bad behavior in the short term means paying some sort of allowances whilst you tool up and increase your capacity to the point that you can then enforce the will of the state in every facet, then that's what it has to be.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. C. That is all the time that we have for Freshly Pressed this morning. Thank you for listening. Thanks for your messages. And of course, special thanks to our analysts, Mr. C and Gbubemi, for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
Do stay with us. There's a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.
Headlines, the stories, the news.
Thanks, Gbubemi. Have a good day. Bye.
Freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1.